Hello everybody, it's the Game Judge here, and I recently did a playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses, and let me say this game was a gigantic breath of fresh air, especially when companies that I loved have really been taken lately, such as Bethesda and Bioware. And I actually heard about this game from my wife, who happens to be a gamer, and I made a promise to her that I would play this game. Let me just say, this game really takes me back to when RPG games focused on good writing, character development, fun combat, fun progression systems, and an awesome story. Fire Emblem shows us that it can still be done, even as recently as 2019 when it was released for the Nintendo Switch. Set in the Fire Emblem universe and in the land of Fodlan, the character focus on this game is amazing. You essentially have 3 houses with one main leader of the house and many character companions in each house that you can interact with, and each one has their own unique personality and loads of dialogue. And even after you pick the house you wish to side with and the story progresses, on some level you still interact with people from the other houses, whether that be as friends or as enemies in the story. On top of this, by choosing a particular house to side with, it allows you to get to know certain companions a little more. I chose the Golden Deer house, which consisted of the swashbuckler Claude as the leader, who at first kind of bothered me because he was always calling me Teach all the time.
Is there anything else you want to ask me, Teach? You really showed them, Teach. Teach.
But after getting to know him for a while and progressing in the story, the game did a great job of developing Claude, and he really grew on me, as I learned that he was not just a swashbuckler character, but someone who was always thinking deeply about issues facing the world of Fodlan and its people. It led to a lot of deep conversations, like if I think a god is real or not. And that is just one character in this game. You have characters like Marianne, who is really shy at first but builds confidence over time, or Lawrence, who at first comes off as a snobby noble, but you learn that he actually does care about the lower class in Fodlan, but in his own way of how he views the world. Not only is there so many characters that you can interact with, but there are so many ways in which you can interact with them. Between having dinner with them, tea time with them, sitting in the sauna with them, visiting them in a monastery base, or just choosing to interact with them through the game's support system that allows you to pair different characters together to strengthen whatever relations you want to strengthen by a letter grading system. Not to mention, these interactions with companions are so well done, with the game constantly using different camera angles to keep your attention. The companions are constantly using body language and facial expressions to convey what they are trying to say to you. The voice acting is great and believable. I mean, you can just really feel the character-centric focus in this game. Now, this is just some of the ways the game allows you to get to know the characters on a deep level and allows you to customize in many ways how to go about this. What makes this even more amazing is that this is just for one playthrough of the house that I picked, and the pairing and the relationships you form within these houses can change throughout the story in the game, encouraging you to do more playthroughs of the game. The replayability is fantastic in this game. It is a deep system that I feel a lot of games can use for inspiration on how to make a game that can have great character focus and character development. Now, to me, this is the greatest strength of Fire Emblem Three Houses, but it does justice in other areas as well. If turn-based combat is your thing, then this game checks all the boxes. You can use different camera angles that zoom in and out. It's a classic leveling system that starts you at 1, and it's so satisfying moving your characters around you that you have formed a relationship with around the board like chess, trying to strategize who to attack, when to retreat, and when to defend. You also get to have battalions with you, which essentially is a mini army that travels with you that you can choose and customize that gives you different abilities. Although I do wish they would have done more with the combat interaction and maybe included things like the summoning of Dijin and the old Golden Sun game on Game Boy Color, just to spice things up a bit. But the combat is not bad. This brings me to my next part, the character classes and how the skills pertain to them. Progressing your characters through the classes by upping certain skills can be very addicting. Seeing your character go from a simple fighter class all the way up to a war monk or a wyvern lord is so satisfying. The great part is they provide so many ways to do this, like the monthly teaching seminar you can host, or putting 2 companions together to work on a task. Now, as you progress, you get different combat abilities that you have to manage, as to not use too much as they can break your weapon. Now, this area of upping skills does get repetitive after a while, especially once you reach the top of the classes, the master class. It becomes a cycle of doing things to increase companion motivation and then raising their skills. The game does do a great job of offering other things to do, and technically you can just skip this part a lot of the time, but this is an area where I felt, for me, I wish the game would have done a little more in regards to the variety of customization options you have. For example, example, they only allow you to wear 2 items, usually a weapon and something like a shield. I would have liked them to maybe take a step further and maybe include another slot or 2 that can boost your character stats and change their appearance. Maybe something like having your character wear armor or boots would have been a nice addition. But honestly, it is forgiven because the game does so many things very well and no game is perfect. And the last part I want to talk about is that the content in this game is plentiful and it's outstanding. The game's main story is around 50 hours long compared to some of my favorite games like Dragon Age Origins, which is around 40 hours. To be honest, it almost felt too long at times and started to drag a little bit, which feels kind of weird to say with modern games these days, but part of it was probably because I took a 6-month break in between beating this game, which I really recommend that you don't do that, as I felt like this really broke immersion for me a little bit. But I digress. The length of the game, if I'm being really picky, maybe could have been trimmed a little bit. At the end of the day though, I'd rather have too much than too little. Not only is the story long, but it's full of many things you can do, like navigating your map to battle or explore the monastery, wish a companion happy birthday, go fishing, sing in the choir, improve your weapons, spin your renown on statues to boost stats. I mean, the list goes on and on. And what makes this even more impressive is it does all of this without microtransactions. So to kind of summarize everything, I feel that Fire Emblem Three Houses is a big time commitment, and if you're like me and don't have a good memory, then I'd recommend once you start this game to finish it and not take long breaks, because I feel this game is not really designed that way. It's really designed for you to really get into the characters and the story and immerse yourself in the world. It is a game that's worth the time investment in my opinion. One other thing to add too is the game is a little PG-13, not really much blood or anything, although it does have a little dark dialogue here and there. So if you're kind of into the real dark and gritty stuff, that element is kind of missing here. But if you love a game that has a ton of great dialogue, character development and interactions, fun real-time strategy combat, and classic RPG progression systems with their own twist, then I would highly recommend checking out this game if you haven't. Now, if I had to rate this game as the game judge, I'd have to put it in the 8 to 9 range. So to split the difference, I give this game a verdict of 8.5. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all on the next one.